this is the breath of God. And that we are one with the infinite power of the universe. That which beats our heart and circulates our blood is the same force that holds the planets in their orbits, that rose the sun this morning. Our skin is made of stardust. We are one with the infinite power of the entire universe. And so that means that 7 billion of us know love and joy and peace. And it is all good and all God. And so it is from this place of knowing and trusting this deep abiding faith that I, Sonia, speak my word on behalf of my beloved Heart and Soul Center of Light community, giving thanks in advance for each of our heart's desires being made manifest. That today and every day we know the perfect experience of love and joy, of peace and comforts. That we know ourselves to be safe and guided, guarded, and protected by the infinite. I know that each and every one of us allows ourselves to be wrapped in a warm blanket of worthiness. That we know that the love of the infinite supports us. That we never walk alone. I know that God is in this moment, is in this breath, and is in every single person. God in drag. And we are grateful to know and accept every person as they are, as we endeavor to see the perfection of who they want to be. And so I am grateful for Heart and Soul Center of Light and all that it endeavors to be on the planet, for the permission that it gives us to be powerful, to be courageous, to be unapologetic, to be loving and kind and compassionate. I am grateful for every heart and every hand that supports this ministry. I am grateful for our knowing of abundance and prosperity. I am grateful that our practitioners pray and that our board of trustees manages our business affairs. And I am grateful for our beloved Reverend Argiette for saying yes, for being powerful and vulnerable and saying yes, I will go. And I am grateful this day for our beloved Reverend Dr. Ken Gordon for saying yes to being the spiritual leader for Centers for Spiritual Living, for his heart being open wide, for him believing at his core that this can be a world that works for everyone. Because we believe in a world that works for everyone. And I am grateful for this knowing. I am grateful for the opportunity to speak this word. I am grateful, family, for the good sense to be grateful. And it is in perfect gratitude that I simply release this word into the law. I know that it is done. I expect it and accept it as so, now and forever. And so it is. And so it is.
I can see the impossible. Sunday. Our very first service was November 4th of 2009. This is very exciting because many of us, you saw the video, many of us are already, we spent yesterday afternoon together seeing Harriet.
Yes.
Mother Harriet, the film about.
Yes.
And there's no way for me, and my sense is many of us, to have viewed that film and not walk away with the essential nature of the vision that's written on each of our hearts.
Yes.
And the importance of our willingness to listen, to be willing to engage whatever that vision is, no matter what. There was something that Dr. Ken said at the earlier service that just reminded me of that moment in the film, and forgive me if this is a spoiler for anybody, but you should have been with us yet.
Tell the truth.
That there's a moment when Mother Harriet says, I'm not going to stop freeing slaves because it's too far. So there's just a moment when we realize that whatever limit we put in place, or whatever limit we're willing to consider, hear me say, we're not going to stop freeing slaves because it's too far. So there's a lot that's happening here to be grateful for. That folks have pulled out all the stops, but I want to lift up in particular, because I'm sure all Heart and Soulers will agree, for me to acknowledge right now our beautification team. They have just added some fall goodies in celebration of it. Y'all see the sparkling tin in there? There's all kind of stuff. But in particular, the choir seats and the reserve seats that we have to have, because we have to have those folks doing sacred service, have a place to park when appropriate, and those look gorgeous. Yes. I see y'all kick back in them. So there is, Chichi, this quote, a leader's job is to look into the future and to see the organization not as it is, but as it can become. And so that video that you saw of our leadership team, and that's just a portion of it, there's more video that is being recorded, I think today and ongoing. But today in particular puts me in mind of this quote. In our presence today, in our congregation today, is Tracy Brown, who brought our message last week. Tracy, just stand so that we can say thank you. Tracy is the elected chair of the Centers for Spiritual Living Leadership Council. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being with us, but thank you for the work that you do. Also, it puts me in mind of Reverend Jack Elliott, who is our founding, well, he's a founding member of Heart and Soul, certainly, but he's also our founding board president. And even preceding the founding of Heart and Soul, there's that moment, because Jack has been my dear, dear friend since the early 80s. And so when I was talking to him about the hand at the small of my back and what it would mean, I didn't know for sure that I had what it would take for me to make the necessary step in the direction of founding Heart and Soul. I knew there was something, but I didn't. I'm a collaborator. So I gather folks along the way. I'm not inclined to be the one to just go out. I'm just going to do it myself. That's not me. I gather me a little team together. Who else wants to help? How we going to do this? And so I'm talking to Jack about it, and I'm uncertain about the next step. And I recall Jack saying to me that wherever you go, I'm going with you. And that was enough for me to know that I could take the next step. Because somebody was going with me, and I've always known that even if he didn't go the full distance, we'd meet somebody along the way. But I just needed that start, and Reverend Jack, come on up here. Gave me that word that I needed to know. Now, we don't get to see him much. This is very special. Oh, I left my bag over there. Thank you. This is very special because Reverend Jack took an interim minister assignment in Fresno. Thank you, love. And has been there. Lord, we just going to keep praying for y'all in Fresno.
There's two folks from Fresno in the room.
We're going to pray for the world. We're praying for the world, and we're lifting up Fresno also. Yes, so we don't get to see him much, and as a result, you were not here last week when we did the installation and the renewal vows for the practitioners. And my gift to the practitioners is this adinkra symbol that loosely translated means only God. So no matter what else appears to be present and happening, it's only God. And so this is yours to have and to add to your story. I want you to know that we love you. And if you would say just a few words, because your new ministry is a focus ministry, and it is Elder Pride.
Yes.
Let us know what that is.
Absolutely. Good morning, Heart and Soul.
Good morning.
This day is so filled with celebration and gifts to do. Of course, we had to pick the day that actually has 25 hours in it to do it. I am so glad that we fell back last night, got a little extra rest, because you're going to need it today. I'm just telling you. I have the privilege of launching in January. It's actually kind of started now, but launching in January, Elder Pride, a focus ministry for the Centers of Spiritual Living. And focus means a special attention to our LGBTQ brothers and sisters over 60. Some of those folks are feeling isolation. Some of those folks are feeling left out. Some of those folks are wondering why they survived the AIDS epidemic only to have this experience of life. So we're going to do some work for them, because this is a world-class teaching and empowering ministry. It is my spiritual home. How can I not go out into the world and do things? So that said, I have someone very special to introduce to you. Dr. Ken Gordon is the face of the Centers for Spiritual Living. He goes throughout the world telling about the principles of science of mind and spirit and what the world offers as our spiritual leader. He has served in that position for nearly 8 years, for over 400 centers in the United States and nearly a dozen centers internationally. He travels worldwide in support of the teaching of the Science of Mind and the Centers of Spiritual Living, and he is the author of the book called Mind and Manifestation, and contributes regularly to the Science of Mind magazine, a Centers for Spiritual Living publication, and he writes weekly a blog for Pathos.com, which is a leading website on religion that includes some of the most well-known and widely read bloggers and columnists around the world. In 2011, he was bestowed an honorary doctorate in divinity by the International Centers for Spiritual Living, an honor that has only been bestowed upon fewer than a dozen people.
Wow.
As Reverend Dr. Gordon concludes his final year of 8 years serving as the first spiritual leader of the Centers for Spiritual Living, would you please join me in welcoming the Reverend Dr. Ken Gordon.
Dr. Kidd. So, on behalf of Heart and Soul Center of Light, it is my honor to present to you this West African Adinkra symbol. And it has great significance for this community. It's the same symbol that I just presented to Jack and all of the practitioners wear as well. It's called a Jinyame. It's an Adinkra symbol, as I said, from West Africa. And loosely translated, it means only God. So you heard me speak of that. What we're giving this to you, because one, we want you to have it, and many of your prayers begin by acknowledging only God. Mm-hmm. So we recognize the kindred spirit, and what we say to you is in gratitude to Reverend Dr. Ken Gordon, November 3rd, 2019, Heart and Soul Center of Life. Mm-hmm. This is to remind you of the role that you have played, and in particular for me, over the years that I've known you, and every time we have spoken, I want to acknowledge how you have stood firmly in principle and in love, and embracing and compassion and acceptance. And in our culture, our CSL culture, it's not lost on me that you are a shining light in your willingness and ability to bring everybody into the center of your heart and wrap them in love. Yes. And for that I'm grateful.
Yes, indeed.
And now I'd love to give our community an opportunity to welcome you in the way that we typically do. Heart and soul. Yes. Yes. And so notice how our hands are outstretched to you. And we want you to receive this as being symbolic of the way that we are extending our hearts, opening our hearts and extending them to you in this day. So hear us say, as we say together, Reverend Dr. Ken.
Reverend Dr. Ken.
We love you.
We love you.
We accept the love that you are.
We accept the love that you are.
We accept the peace that you bring.
We accept the peace that you bring.
We see your open heart.
We see your open heart.
We hear it through your words.
We hear it through your words.
And we appreciate the consistency.
And we appreciate the consistency
with which you practice.
With which you practice.
And with which you lead.
And with which you lead.
We know that right where you are.
We know that right where you are.
God is.
God is.
And for this we are grateful.
And for this we are grateful.
We see you.
We see you.
We love you.
We love you.
And we thank God.
And we thank God for you.
Welcome to Heart and Soul.
Welcome to Heart and Soul.
Special
place for this. This is wonderful. It means more to me than you could possibly imagine. Thank you.
So the next voice you hear will be the choir. After which.
So really quick before the choir comes up, y'all know Rev's birthday is coming, right? So the practitioners have a gift for you, Reverend Andriette. Y'all also must know she doesn't really like surprises, which is why the practitioners always send me. So Rev, we offer this gift to you for 10 years of kindness, 10 years of the highest integrity, 10 years of feedback that makes us better people. And 10 years of being willing to see people through the Green Lens. And the Green Lens family includes seeing people as love and as capable and as being whole, perfect, and complete. And Rev does that for every single one of us, like you all have no idea. She does it for me quite especially on a regular basis. And so the practitioners have come together to offer a card and a gift that allows her to do her favorite thing, y'all, which is travel. And so we are offering this gift as a demonstration of our love. And I would ask for you to open this part of the gift for people to see. And I wasn't trying to make her upset, y'all.
I'm trying to compose myself. It's all right. It's okay. We got you.
Everybody take a breath.
Yeah. I don't want me to turn
And now we'll have a word from our sponsor. My band accuses me of being the one who comes and breaks up their concert every Sunday morning. What can I say? You guys are great. You're great. This is what spiritual community feels like, is it? Yes. Do you think this is what a world that works for everyone feels like? Oh, yes. Yeah, me too. I'll tell you, that's really the transportation that goes from the head to the heart. That's the method and the way that it works, is to really tie into who we are and what we are. Yes. Bishop Carlton Pearson told me once that after he discovered, I like it too. After he discovered Science of Mind by sneaking in the back door and hiding out at Agape and listening to Dr. Michael speak, he said that we have the massage, you guys have the message. If we ever connect the message with the massage, look out world. And that's exactly what I got here. This is the sense that I'm feeling here. What a way to enliven God and Spirit within each and every one of us. What a way to turn it on and turn us up. And get that feeling deep down in our own being and our own self. I come out of Canada where my church is, and I can remember the first time I came from Palm Desert, California. Well, actually, I came from Canada, went to Palm Desert, California. It's a long story. But I was farming in Southern California. But at any rate, I found the church in Palm Desert, California with Dr. Tom Costa, and I used to go, and there was a big church. We hung out all the time. It was a marvelous thing. I can't remember where I'm going with this. And every time I went to church, people would laugh, and they'd have such a great time, and they were smiling, and they were so receptive in the audience. And I went back to Canada, in my little town in Canada where I was born and raised, and Deborah, my wife, and I started a center. And when we started the center, the first thing that showed up were 8 people. And as I gave my talk, thinking there should be 1,200, you know how it works. Talk about the insecurity that, I'm not sure if I'm chosen for this. I'll tell you what I thought was going to happen was, because I came from a church of 1,200 people, I figured this was the way it's going to work. I'd get into my motorhome, and what I would do is I would go tour the Pacific Northwest until I found 1,200 people who loved me, and then they would start coming to the center. Well, it didn't work out quite that way. 8 people showed up the first Sunday, 6 probably the second, and most of them were my family. So, but anyway, to get back to what I was talking about, you'll find that I digress quite a bit. To get back to what I was talking about, nobody in the audience showed anything on their face. It was like you'd give a talk and they go. Now, either my talk wasn't worth anything, or they needed to change. And so it took some movement to get that consciousness going, to get them to actually be in touch, to be connected. And I see that in a lot of different ways and different shapes. So like I say, I started off farming in Southern California, and like Reverend Andriette and 100 or so of you, started my own center. And so I know the visioning that it takes. I know the faith it takes. I know the courage that it takes. I know the trust that it takes to be able to step forward and step out and to actually open your doors and say, here I am, come hear me, I have something to tell you that will change your life, I hope. and that's exactly how it all starts and the way it goes. So this is such a magnificent community. What you guys have done, wow. What have you been doing for 10 years, right? Incredible. And Reverend Andriette, I've got to give a big shout out to you. Yeah, what a job. The key is to make it look simple, right? Just make it look easy. Make it look like, oh, there's no problem with it whatsoever. Then people say, oh my God, if you only worked harder, imagine what you could have done, or what you could have created. But the truth is that there's a lot of consciousness and there's a lot of energy that fits into this place. And I'm looking at your next 10 years and I'm thinking, how can you be stopped? You are an unstoppable force. And there is no reason why you can't grow that mega church that was being talked about. There's no reason why you can't have 1,000 seats filled every single Sunday. There's no reason at all except the reason that might exist between this year and this year in your own thought, your own belief system, and how it operates and how it works. And so the key is to make sure that you are congruent with what your vision is, with your own mentality and your own consciousness. That you tie it together and work it in perfection, and you do not allow it to fall by the wayside or stray out of your sight. Because here's what we know. We know that anything we put our energy to will expand and grow. Am I correct? That's right. All right. So if we put our energy to the vision of heart and soul as a mega church, if we put our vision and our energy out that way and feed that way, then that's going to happen. It's going to happen by natural course. Nothing can prevent it. Nothing can stop it. When we say it will be done, it will be done, provided we keep our energy on. But what happens to us often is that what happens is, or I'll speak for myself because I'm positive that there are avatars in this room that do not have this problem. What happens to me is I put a vision out in front of myself and I say, this will manifest, this will become my truth, this will become the reality of my life. And then immediately what happens is I start feeding it for 5-10 minutes and keep it going, and then something over here happens. And I immediately go over there and I start looking at it, and all the energy that I used to put there begins to expand and grow here. And all of a sudden this is growing. And I don't know about you, but for me, I spent too many years, far too many years, expanding, growing, and developing negative ideas that I didn't want to have happen in my life. Belief systems that wouldn't work for me, that weren't effective, and that weren't congruent with what I wanted. They were incongruent, as a matter of fact. And the end result is I kept wondering, how come this doesn't get built when I'm spending all my time here? Spending all my time looking at this problem, this issue. And believe me, this is as infinite as that. The potentiality is incredible. I could get over one of them and another one shows up, and another one shows up, and another one shows up. The whole broad spectrum appears before me, so I can't miss it. So what we need to know, or what we can learn to know to build and develop this vision that you have, and it will be formulated more from the sounds of it as you come to these visioning meetings, but what you'll begin to do is you'll begin to develop an idea and an ideal, and what I'm telling you is that you need to lay it out there, and you need to set it in front of you, and you need to spend more time looking at the vision and holding the truth that could be a reality than spending it over here looking at all the other garbage, mishmash, neuroses, and issues that transforms the world and everyone we come in contact with. Just saying. And you know, our vision for Centers for Spiritual Living is a world that works for everyone. And our purpose is to awaken humanity to its spiritual magnificence. So we lay out before us that truth. And my job as the spiritual leader for the organization is to hold that vision constantly and consistently, never let it go, never put it down, although I do all the time, and then I forgive myself and pick it back up again. Because I'm not a saint, and I'm not stuck on what I'm looking at. What happens is I'm of this world, and because I'm of this world, what occurs for me is I have a television set. I have a newspaper I read. I run into people, and I meet people, and I hear things, and I have all kinds of additional little things that show up that help me build my neuroses. But I have a spiritual practice that says we are creating a world that works for everyone. We are creating a 20,000 person church. We are creating, you name it. And the reason we're doing it is because we are called to do it. This is a living idea in the mind of God. It is not a living idea in your mind. It's not a living idea in Reverend Andriette's mind. And that's not a living idea in my mind. It is a living idea in the mind of God, which means every day I have to surrender. Every day I have to let go of it. And every day I have to bring myself back and feed the energy into the vision itself and say, this too shall come. And this stuff here, say, get thee behind me. You don't serve me anymore. It doesn't work. I can no longer hate. I can no longer mistrust. I can no longer withhold. I can no longer disdain. I can no longer manipulate. What I need to do is I need to spend all of my energy on the vision. And so it becomes a practice. And when this occurs, we learn not to go there. When I was farming in Southern California, it would peak up to 125 degrees during the summer, so it was warm. And so I had a motorhome and 2 little kids and a wife. And so what we would, I still have a motorhome and 2 big kids and a wife. And so what we would do, though, is we would put them in the motorhome and we'd drive over to the beach. I was farming in Thermal, California, south of India. And so what I would do is I'd pack my children up and the dog, and off we'd go. And we'd go to a beach called San Onofre, north of San Diego. And it was where the nuclear plants are. It's really great. You can see well in the night. I would take them over there, and what we would do is we'd park up on the top in the parking lot, and we'd camp there. And every morning we'd go down to the beach and play. But to get to the beach, there was big cliffs, and there was a canyon that went down. And you had to walk through the canyon, and the canyon was like narrowing as you got down, so that it was wide at the beginning, and then it would narrow, and then you'd walk through 2 bluffs and out onto the beach. And we would spend all day at the beach. But to get down there, somebody really, really intelligent put in a paved walkway. It went like this. It was just asphalt. And it went down through all the stickers and the bushes and the branches. You know, that's one thing I learned in California, is that if it survives in the heat, then it has stickers and branches. That's how it survives. So everything, sticks, bites, or whatever, where I came from in California. So down we go. So we would walk down this pathway. And it would narrow, and it would narrow, and it would narrow and narrow, and then it'd dump out onto the beach, and you'd get there. And it was a great thing. It was what we wanted, because we were going to the beach. Our vision was to go to the beach. And so what we would do is we'd go and we'd camp up top, and every day we'd walk down, and every evening we'd walk back up to the top again and get back into our camper and go to sleep. And one night I had a dream. And the dream I had was that I was standing at the top of that winding path going down to San Onofre. And I was blind. I could not see. And so I started to walk down the pathway, and as long as I was on the asphalt, it was really quite easy to walk. But what would happen to me is occasionally I would step off the asphalt, and when I stepped off the asphalt, I'd step into the stickers. And they'd start to sting and they'd hurt. And so what I would do when I did that would be panic. And when I panicked because it was hurting me, what I would do is I'd start to run. And I'd run deeper and deeper into the stickers and get caught by them more and more and more and more, so that it became a painful experience. And then eventually I'd stumble out onto a piece of asphalt and I could feel it, and then I could start walking on it again. And I'd walk a short distance and I'd step off and I'd panic and I'd run into the stickers some more. And the dream really worked well, because it occurred to me that if I were just to pay attention with what's going on in the world and what's going on in my life, and pay attention where I was walking, that when I actually stepped off into the stickers and first felt the pain, what I had was the choice to step back onto the pathway again. And if I stepped back onto the pathway again, then I could walk down until I stepped off again. And when I stepped off again and felt the pain, I could step back onto the pathway and start working again. So we put a vision before us that's laid out there. And we know that what's going to occur for us is it's going to be like walking on a pathway and a certain degree blind. And that what we have to learn to do in the world around us is we have to learn to recognize when we step off and feel the stickers and remember to get back on again. So that what we can do is we can have a direction in our life, and so that what we can feed is the energy where we want it to be fed, which is the vision itself, as opposed to the stickers on the side of the road. And the calling that we've got, the calling for Centers for Spiritual Living, the calling for all of our centers, all of our churches, is really to awaken to this and to recognize and know that there's a way that we can transform and heal it in order to bring the vision into place. But we can't bring the vision into place with the same energy that created the problems in the first place. What it demands is that we do is that we learn a new way of approaching the old problems in our life. Because we've approached them in really peculiar ways over the years. I thought that war was supposed to end, that the cessation of it was supposed to go away. It doesn't seem to end. I thought hatred and racism and bigotry, I thought that was all going to end. It made sense that it should. It didn't make sense that we would continue on with it anymore, because it's quite obvious it doesn't work to create a world that works for everyone. Matter of fact, it doesn't work at all. And so the end result out of that experience, and the end result out of seeing that, is, why do we just keep doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over again? And the answer is, what happens is, every time we step off the path, we panic and we start to run, instead of stepping back onto the pathway of the vision, the pathway of God, and the pathway of Spirit. Am I making sense?
Yes.
So it opens the door for us to learn to do things in a different way, in a different pattern, in a different fashion than we've ever done before. And when we want to build anything, and I mean anything, did I say anything? Anything. When we want to build anything, create anything, recognize anything, experience anything, what we can do is we can put a vision out in front of us, and we can lay it there and then have more faith in the vision than we have in the neuroses or the issues that go on beside it. When we do that, what occurs for us is that starts to grow in our life. The prosperity that we seek, the health that we seek, the energy that we seek, the love that we seek, the creativity, the fulfillment, the productivity. It all grows and expands if we keep our eye on it and our energy on it, as opposed to our eye or energy on something else, something that doesn't work. You want to hear a really bad joke? It's one of my favorites. I tell it quite often. Some of you probably already have heard it. There's a ship at sailing, and it's been at sea for months and months and months. And they've lost total sight of land. They have no idea where land is. And so the captain, realizing they're getting low on water, says, I will reward the first sailor who spots land. So they fight to get up, and they get up in the crow's nest, and they sail. And they sail on and on for a considerable period of time. And suddenly, a sailor up in the top says, I think I see it, land ho, and points off on the horizon. And so they look, and sure enough, there's a smear of clouds, and it looks like there might be some ground that's there, there might be some land, so they sail closer to it. And they get a little bit closer to it, and what they see is, sure enough, there's an island, there's an atoll in the middle of nowhere sitting there. And they get a little bit closer yet, and they see there's a big bay. So they sail their ship into the big bay. And on the bay, and built on the shore, they see that there's 3 structures. And there's a guy on the beach standing there, waving his arms, jumping up and down. And they look at it, and okay. So they anchor, and they throw the boat over the side, and they row to shore. And the guy on the beach runs up and says, oh, thank God you're here. Oh, he said, I can't possibly tell you how grateful I am that you've shown up and that you're here. I've been on this island all by myself for 15 years, not another soul. I've been living here off the land, and I thought I'd never get saved. And the sailors say, we're happy to do that. We can't help but notice, though, that you have 3 buildings. Well, what are those 3 buildings? He says, well, that one there is my home. So, oh, that's a nice home. Well, what are the other 2? He said, well, that's my church. That's the church I go to. Oh, well, that's great. So what's the 3rd? That's the church I used to go to. People of faith will transform the world. It won't happen by politicians. It won't happen by military might. It can only happen when spiritual people come together and share the spirituality. I'm not saying religion's going to change it. Spirituality and people of faith, as the song says, are going to transform the world. But it depends what we have faith in. Now, if you have faith in the same old going to continue on, and you want to hold on and believe that, which I don't, then the end result out of that is that that will become what grows and expands. But if you have faith in a teaching that's set up to transform the world and awaken humanity in a way that does not punish and is not cruel, then the end result is you're going to keep your focus on that vision there before you. And as we do that, and as we begin to feed that more and more and more and more, Spirit itself will begin to draw into our life everything that's required and everything that's necessary to make it a reality. I don't care whether you're talking about fulfillment, whether you're talking about wealth, or whether you're talking about healing the world. When you put it out there before you and you have the faith, and as your movie that you watched with about Harriet last month, this has been a long service, as they said, perseverance, courage, faith, and trust. And you lay it out there and you put it before you so that you know with absolute certainty that it must become a reality. People say to me, well, what's a world that works for everyone? How can you do that? That's impossible. You can never create it. They're feeding their neuroses. They're feeding a lie. That power that births children, that holds the cosmos in place, that breathes you as you sit here, that keeps trillions of parts moving within each and every one of us at any given time without any need for our to think about it. That power has the potential, the possibility, and the reality of creating whatever it is that's put into it to make it so. It is bigger than our problem. And our issue, though, is that we really hang out in our problems. And we spend far too much time. So it demands a spiritual practice. And it demands an activation. And it demands an application of what we do and how we do it. How we implant it, put it into our lives, and move forward with it. That's my calling. I don't have anything better to do in life than create a world that works for everyone, myself included. It is the bottom line of everything. And so it's easy to donate my life to it. What it isn't easy to do is stay on the pathway and not panic when I step off. And that demands spiritual practice. And spiritual practice means you show up where people actually share with you and help you along the way. That actually tell you where your foibles are and remind you occasionally that you're probably stepping off the path right now and you might want to get back on again because you'll find it easier going. And that's what this teaching does. And it's not just the teaching of science of mind. It's not just the teaching of religious science. It is the teaching of truth that exists in the world today. And it's existing more and more in every place that we go. We made an affiliation with TFAM, the Fellowship for the Affirming Ministries, with Bishop Flunder. And we have a close relationship. And we have a close relationship with several large denominations that we hang out and associate with. And the only way we could do it is by putting our neuroses aside. By putting what we thought was true aside, and they putting it aside, and coming to an agreement that we had a vision which was more important than our belief. We had a vision that had a greater value than the lies that we've told ourselves. And that meant that we had to survive and give up our egos. We had to give up our need to be right. We had to give up our need to be righteous. We had to give up our arrogance that we know something you don't. And when we gave that up, what happened was we found that they want the same thing we want. And I'll tell you something, you go out there on the street, and I don't care who you run into, they want the same thing you want, they just don't know it because they're living in here. And they're not living there. And in order to get what we want, we need to live there in our energy and in our heart and in our soul. Heart and soul. And at that point, what happens is it will be attracted to us and we will be pulled to it. And it will draw us where we need to go. And everything that occurs to us once it's been put into mind that occurs will occur as a manifestation to bring about the vision that we want to accomplish. Everything. I tell my students I want to be of the consciousness that I've done my prayer work, and if I step off a curb and sprain my ankle, instead of jumping up and down and saying, golly darn gee, with different words, what I say instead is thank you, God. Because everything collaborates to create the vision when you feed the energy into the vision. And that's what we're about. You guys want to pray with me for that?
Yes.
All right. So let's just get in touch and join that consciousness that we're never separate from. That greatness that we are. And I'll have you breathe. And on your next breath, what I want you to do is I want you to release the past. Not just how you got to church this morning, or not just what I just said. I want you to release and let go and allow yourself to believe and understand that what that is history. Yes. That's all it is. It happened? Yes. Is it happening now? No. So allow yourself to fall into that place of all the power of the universe, the present moment. And on your next breath, what I would have you do is I would have you turn and let go of the future. Let go of any concern or thought of what you're going to do next or what you're going to hear next. And allow yourself to fall back into the present moment where all the power of the universe exists. The future is nothing more than our imagination in activity. It often awakens our anxiety. But in the present moment where all the power is, there's nothing but the beauty and the light and the joy and the peace and the harmony and the health. In the present moment, without past and without future, you're not hungry. You're not sick. You're not bad. You're not good. What you are is you are centered in the divinity that is the truth of who you are. You are grounded in your reality. So it's from this place that I speak my word. Recognizing and knowing that from this day forward, a vision is placed before each and every one of us. And that we are clear on what that vision is. We're clear on what it is for this center. We're clear on what it is for our organization. We're clear on what it is for the world itself. We lay before us the ideal of a world that works. Knowing that everything that needs to be created and everything that needs to be released is already done. And we allow Spirit to move through us with ease. This takes no work whatsoever. We speak our word knowing and understanding that every time we find ourselves away from the vision of what it is that we choose and wrapped up in the neuroses of life, that Spirit itself pulls us from that area into an awareness of what we're doing so that we turn instead towards the vision and allow the issue and the neuroses to diminish, dissolve, and dissipate. That higher power that exists within each and every one of us moves within us to awaken us to our own reality and to our own consciousness. And it does this with ease. Nothing more and nothing less is needed to be done. For right here and right now, our lives have been changed at depth. With this spoken word, our lives are changed at depth. Never again can we deal with the minutiae of life, the neuroses of life, when we recognize and realize the wholeness of the present moment and the wholeness of Spirit and the wholeness and the truth of who I am, you are, and all are. Accepting and expecting this to be so. I surrender this word back into the universal mind, your mind, my mind, and all mind. And I live from it with expectation and anticipation. I demand this vision be made form. And I ground this by saying, and so it is. God bless you. God bless this beautiful community. It's so good.
Stranger to the dark, hide away, they say. We don't want your broken parts. I learned to be ashamed of all my scars. Run away, they say. No one will love you as you are. But I won't let them break me down to dust. I know that there's a place for blood, for we glorious.
amen, y'all. Yes? Yes, that is the Heart and Soul Choir with David Dupart on piano, Tony Saunders on bass, Annie Stafford on sax, and Daria Johnson on drums. And we are grateful. Let's all take a breath together, family. And thank you, Dr. Ken, for being here. Yes, just bringing all the clarity about what is ours to do in the world. Yes, family? Yes, amen. Woo! That's good stuff. Just trying to get back in my body. Yes, our opportunity, family, to simply, to allow ourselves to be grounded in the knowing how amazingly blessed we are to have a center like Heart and Soul. Yes, how amazingly blessed we are to know that we are transforming the planet and have been doing so for a decade. Yes? And so I'm here to simply remind us that this center is funded by us. For us, by us. That's what that means. So, I'm trusting that you have the envelope, that you have the text number, that you've written your check, that you have all that you need in order to give to Heart and Soul today. This time, we are going to bring forth our Youth and Family Village under the direction of Miss Christine and Miss Kaitana.
I look at the church.
Right, Harriet?
So in honor of Mama Harriet, we are now turning our sanctuary into a river. River, start flowing. Start flowing. Right, because she couldn't read, she couldn't write, but she could hear the river. She could hear the stars when her dad said, and I quote the movie, if you can't see the stars, listen to the river. So in the words of Langston Hughes, let's get started, young people.
I've known rivers, ancient as the world and older than the flow of human blood and human veins. My soul has grown deep like the river. Oh, My river rock told Harriet to keep going and trust the process, and everything will be all right with love. My river rock told me that I should love myself, and if something bad happens, it will be okay.
All right. That's right.
My river rock told Harriet that she can follow the stars in nature. Whichever she follows, she will get to freedom.
Yes.
My river rock tells me that every day something good will happen.
Yes.
My river rock told Harriet you can be invisible. My river rock tells Harriet you can move on to the next step.
My river rock told Harriet to never doubt that God is watching you. And my river rock told me that you are whatever you aspire to be.
I've known rivers, ancient dusty rivers. My soul has grown deep like the river.
This is our Youth and Family Village. Thank you, Ms. Christine.
For year 10. I don't know what we're going to do for year 20. All the stuff, yes. But we're going to think of something to do. We're going to think of something. Y'all can be on the team, and we're going to come up with some good stuff. Yes? This gives me an opportunity to remind you how loved and adored you really are. How much you mean to me, how much you mean to Heart and Soul. from my heart to yours, this is whether I know you, whether I know your name, or whether you can pronounce mine. I want you to know that you are loved. Hug somebody today. What's true about our world right now is that many adults go months without being hugged. An authentic, appropriate hug. Y'all understand what I'm saying? Hug somebody before you leave here and throughout this next week for sure. As our intention to transform the world, it's going to start in little ways. It's not about you walking tall mountains and shouting from the top of that. It's going to be you touching somebody in a way that opens their heart and reminds them of the truth of their being. That is what I'm charging you to do. It'll be my birthday present. Oh, yes. Thank you so much for being here, Dr. Ken. Thank you so very, very, very much. Our blessings to your community in Kelowna. We send our love and our gratitude for your service and for your love. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Huh? This must be our song. Oh, yeah, of course. Of course it is. Come on, y'all. Y'all know this.